Today we're covering the defensive aspects of our game. The defensive boast, the digs out of the back corner, the lob and the counter drop. Remember, you need a good defensive game to get yourself out of trouble and to build for attack. It's important to accept the fact that most attacking shots in squash are returned. When you're defending, your goal is to prevent further attack and to buy time to get back to the tee. Obviously, the tighter you hit your shots into the corners, the more successful your defense will be. Good defense not only buys you time, but is essential if you're to be successful in turning the rally to your advantage. This means putting your opponent on the defensive and you back in control. Let's now take a close look at our first shot, the defensive boast. We hit the defensive boast when we're forced to, when we cannot get the ball straight to the front wall. The three key coaching points for this shot are: number one, racket back before the ball bounces. Number two, contact with the ball in front of an imaginary line between your leading foot and the corner. This will ensure that the racket face is open and it's lifting the ball onto the side wall. Remember that that imaginary line could be between your left foot and the corner or your right foot and the corner. Point number three is to follow through to the side wall, to a target there. Those 3 points again: racket back, come under the ball in front of the line, and follow through to the side wall. Let's have a look at Graham and Jonathan doing those shots now. Here we see Graham dominating the rally with good length in the forehand back corner. As we look at the rally again, we can see that Jonathan has a bit more time on this first shot. He's a bit more balanced with a 2-foot plant. But on this second position, Graham is using terrific deception, and Jonathan late into this corner is forced to stretch onto his right foot. But his persistence pays off, and he's able to work his way back into the rally. The backhand defensive boast has the same three technical points as the forehand. And remember, they are racket back before the bounce, strike the ball in front of an imaginary line between your leading foot and the corner. Remember, this keeps the racket face open. We're hitting under the ball. And then follow through to a target on the side wall. Those 3 points again: racket back before the bounce, in front of the line, follow through to the target. You'll notice that I've got good grip wrist action as I come through the hitting zone, ensuring that I'm going under the ball. You'll notice that I keep using the term racket back and not racket up. The reason for this is because if you're under severe pressure, you won't have time to get the racket up. Much better to think in terms of racket back first, and if time allows, it'll come up automatically afterwards. And here we are with Ahmed Barada and Jonathan. As we look at the rally again, we can see that Jonathan is forced to use this defensive sidewall boast from the back of the court to keep the ball in play. Here he uses a variation, the skid boast, which we cover in a later series. In this first drill, Jonathan is at the front of the court and he's allowed to hit either a straight drive or a cross court. So he's practicing holding his shot and working with different body positions to get some deception. Graham is being forced to boast everything from the back. As we look at this drill in slow motion and we focus in on this boast, we can look at Graham's early racket preparation as he goes into the corner. Good concentration on the ball. And depending on how much time he's got will depend on what his footwork is doing. Whether he's got a 2-foot plant or he's stretching out on his right or his left foot, as we can see there. And right here, there's the ball in front of that imaginary line from his leading foot, the right foot, into the corner. This keeps the racket face open and ensures that the ball gets to the front wall. The players have now switched positions, and Graham will be the one in the front holding his shot as long as he can. This, of course, keeps his opponent stuck on the tee position. We cover this in tape number 3 in more detail. But holding that ball makes his opponent move that little bit later. In slow motion on this backhand side, we can see this ball in front of that imaginary line between the leading foot, this is the left foot now, and the corner. Racket face is open. This is going to lift the ball onto the sidewall and keep it in play. Other points to notice when Jonathan's going in to play his shot, and indeed Graham in the front, is how still the head position is as they bring the racket through the ball. We can also notice early racket preparation. Good footwork in squash is so important. There's no one way to get to the ball. Let's take a few minutes now and just have a look at some of the techniques that Jonathan and Graham use to get around the court nice and easily when they're attacking or when they're under pressure. Let's have a look at exactly how we move to the ball and return to the tee. Top players very rarely run. They use any number of ways to get to the ball: striding, chassis movement, hops and skips. And we're going to have a look now at Jonathan and Graham and see how they master this, and a couple of exercises that you may be able to try on the court to help you move more efficiently. In this first exercise, I just want you to look at how easy this rhythm is as he's practicing. The racket comes back and then up because he's got time between shots. As he turns in to play that backhand drive, and on the follow-through he's starting his push out back towards the tee. He's using his back foot here to drag in to help him with some balance, and Graham prefers to move this way when he's under pressure to help him initiate that push back to the tee position. Into the back left corner, we can begin to see the split step off the tee position. Graham comes up on his toes, and the foot furthest from the corner is the foot that lands first, a split second before the other, driving him back towards the ball. Into the back right corner, we can see this a bit clearer. He comes up onto his toes, and now the driving foot is his left foot. He's coming back to the tee. He splits, and the left foot lands first. In this second exercise with Jonathan, he's landing on a split step and driving straight off, just using momentum to go to the opposite corner. And you can see that he's imagining he's under pressure, and he's doing a crossover with his feet as he drives back. This gives him extra extension into the corner and prevents him from having to do an extra shuffle to get to the ball. In this rhythmic drill, we can also see the sheer power of a good squash player as he's moving around the court, keeping well balanced and a nice easy rhythm. In this exercise to the front two corners, we can see this split step in action again. Up onto his toes, and the driving foot is the back foot. It is possible with good technique to get away very often without hitting the defensive boast. Digging the ball out of the corner is done by turning further away from the ball, bringing the racket down and around so that when we get into position to hit the ball, we're hitting underneath it. It is essential to have good wrist position on this shot. If you haven't mastered this, that we covered in tape number 1, you will not be able to play the shot out of the corner. So the racket comes back before the bounce, it comes down, around and under the ball, and I'm striking the ball level with my front foot. Most people will dig out of the backhand corner off the right foot. It is possible, however, to play the shot off the left foot. There is no right or wrong. The dig shot should be played so that we aim high onto the front wall. This will allow you time to recover to the tee, and it puts your opponent in a position where he's forced to take the ball overhead on the backhand side. The attacking shots in this position are much more difficult. If you hit the shot perfectly, it may in fact go over his outstretched racket, put him in the corner, and put you back in a commanding position on the tee. And here in the match with Barada again, we've got this short rally up and down the backhand wall. And as we look at it in slow motion, we can see Jonathan keeping well away from that ball, moving down the middle of the court, racket back early, stretching on his left foot there. And as we go to this rally again in ultra slow motion, we can look at this contact position as Jonathan goes in to play his dig. The arm is coming back early, racket is up there, and it's coming down, and there's the contact point opposite his leading foot. As the ball comes down off the front wall here, you can see that Barada really has an advantage to volley this ball, but elects to let it go to the back. In this next drill, we have one player, that is Jonathan in this first instance, going to a front tee position. By this I mean that he's got to get at least 1 foot up and over the short line across the middle of the court. This creates more pressure for him so he can practice his digging out of the back. Graham is practicing his backhand straight drives. And in slow motion, we can look at a number of points here. Look at that head still position as he goes in to play the shot. Stretching there off his left foot. Doing a double shuffle, left foot, head down, and a good dig down the wall. And look at that position, fully stretched, the ball level with his leading foot. With the top pros, they're so good at these digs that you can see that they often drive the ball down and not float it up high. The players have now switched positions, and it's Graham's turn to be playing a high tee, creating pressure for himself. It's important that you master the drives off the back wall first, when there's less pressure and a bit more space around the ball. You can see with these two players here, there's really a grey area as to where the drive ends and the dig begins. Quite simply, the further the ball is behind your stance, the shorter the follow-through on the dig shot. All you need to do is to practice the shot high and soft to start with, and as you get better, you'll find you'll be putting a little bit more wrist snap as you come through the ball. In the meantime, just watch the video here over again and get an overall picture of the players as they move in and out of the corner. And as we come in now, we're going to see this ball position there. It's level with his leading foot, very short follow through, and a classic high floating dig down the side wall. You can only dig the ball out of the right-hand corner when leading off the right foot. Take the racket back well before the bounce, turn the shoulders, and come down, around, and under. We're going to connect with the ball nearly opposite the back foot. Those coaching points again: racket back before the bounce, lead with the right foot, down, around, and under. And here we are back in the match with Peter, Nicol and Jonathan. And they're digging the ball out of these corners. Remember, a dig really is a drive that's played late in the stance. And this one starts off with a backhand dig from Jonathan. And then the two players playing the ball very late in their position with a very strong wrist, snapping it cross court. Terrific technique. This is something you'll be able to do with practice, straight or cross court, when the ball is tight in the corner. And here we are on the drill on the forehand side. Jonathan is the one under pressure, taking a front tee position. Graham is just practicing his drives. And there he has to do a double shuffle to get back to the ball. That right foot is essential on being able to get this ball out of the corner to bring it straight. And in slow motion we can see the ball position in relation to his leading foot. There. Lovely preparation from Graham there on his drives. The backswing for Jonathan there, much shorter and much lower because he doesn't have the same amount of time. Making sure he's keeping away from the ball on that shot, not crowding. And here's a different angle from overhead. In this drill, the players are hitting the ball much more gently so that you can get an idea of where the ball is in relation to the feet, and they're aiming them a bit higher up the wall. There's a really tight shot for Graham to deal with. With this extra time, they're able to do a 2-foot plant. The best way to get out of trouble in the front of court when we're under pressure is to use the lob. The cross-court lob is a safer bet than the one straight down the wall. Sometimes hitting straight lobs from the front make the ball go out on the side wall. The cross-court lob on the backhand side is played with the ball well in front of the leading foot. The leading foot on this side is nearly always the right foot. Sometimes, however, you may be finishing on your left. Strong wrist position, short backswing, hit well under the ball, high onto the front wall. The ball's going to go up towards the ceiling, and we want it to die in the back corner, hopefully forcing a defensive boast. As we watch Graham here practicing this shot, we can check those coaching points out again. Ball well in front of the leading foot. That keeps the racket face open. Follow through to the target on the front wall. And look how he keeps his head still through the shot. Here we are in a match back in Qatar. Peter Nicol there under pressure. Perfect lob to get out of trouble. There's a boast from Jonathan. Peter's reaching, stretching up the court. And look how that ball just hangs in the air. It's dying so tight in the back that Jonathan is forced to play a backwall boast. They don't get any better than that. And in this rally here, we've got Ahmed Barada playing Jonathan. And there's a great drop shot from Jonathan, forcing Barada to lob. It's not a bad lob, but Jonathan's still able to leap up there and attack the ball. But this forehand lob is much better. And he forces a weak return from Jonathan and opens up his own attack into the front right. And of course now, he's building with his length again, and we've gone back to the status quo. The forehand lob is played well in front of the leading foot. The leading foot is nearly always the right foot on this corner, so that we have a greater extension. The backswing is going to be short, good wrist position here, and I'm going to come under the ball, high onto the front wall to clear my opponent. Here's Jonathan practicing his forehand lob. And again, let's look at these coaching points. Look at that wrist position there. Contact with the ball well in front of the leading foot. Head nice and still, and the left arm out for balance. Beautiful position. I'm back in a rally now with Peter Nicol and Jonathan. In this rally here, Jonathan's dragged him up with an attacking boast from the back, and there's Peter's forehand lob. It's not a bad lob, but he's slightly overhit it. And as it comes off the back wall, he's looking for it left, and that deceptive Jonathan Power has brought it down the wall to win the rally. If we lob when we're under too much pressure, the danger is that the ball will not clear the mid-court attacking zone, giving our opponent a volleying opportunity when we are well out of position. So under those circumstances, we want to use the counter drop. Like the lob, the counter drop is played well in front of the leading foot, but there's almost no backswing to this shot at all. We simply reach in, again we have a good wrist position, and using our hand we extend the racket into the corner and play the shot into the same corner that we're retrieving it from. And there's Graham nicely placing that ball into the corner. And as we look at it in slow motion, we're going to have a look at where is that ball in relation to his front foot. And there it is, well out in front, and he's reaching with a little hand, extending the racket head towards the corner. Body position nice and low. And the back foot coming in there again for support to help him come out of the corner. This is his preference. And here's Graham and Jonathan doing an exercise. Looks like a funny little exercise, and you'll often hear the racket there as it hits the sidewall or the floor. This is because they're playing the shot so tightly. This is actually a little more difficult than it looks. If you're doing this in your club, you really want to use a red dot or a blue dot ball, or make sure the yellow dot is well warmed up. Peter Nicol and Jonathan Power again in Qatar. What a tremendous rally. Let's have a look at that and these counter drops. First of all, the rally is built from the back, but Jonathan comes in with an attacking drop shot. And there's Peter's counter drop, very tight. Jonathan's is popped up a little bit, and Peter's able to flick it past him. And there's Jonathan getting the ball to the back, and now it's Peter's turn to put in that drop shot. Tight one from Jonathan, and not a bad one from Peter, but Jonathan was standing right behind him, he read it. And not satisfied with getting the ball to the back, he has to hit the nick. The counter drop on the forehand side is similar to the backhand. The ball is played well in front of the leading foot. Nearly every time on this side it will be with the right foot because it gives us greater reach, but not all the time. And again, with virtually no backswing, we'll just be reaching at the ball there and using hand and wrist to push the ball into the same corner. We can see on this forehand side that some shots are angled right into the sidewall. There's one in the nick. And sometimes it hits the floor and bounces up into the sidewall. As it's in slow motion here, we can see this wrist, strong wrist position, little extension, taking the racket head to the front wall. And here they are in the identical position as they were on the backhand side. Both of them preferring the right foot at the moment. Boy, these shots are tight. Let's have a look at two rallies here with drops and counter drops in the front two corners. So far we've just talked about the counter drop as being a defensive shot, but in fact it's very much an offensive shot at times. When a player feels that his opponent is hanging back or is slightly out of position or is not covering the front two corners, a counter drop into the front is one of the best shots to play. In this second rally, Jonathan sets it up with a great drop shot, and it's a very good counter drop from Peter Nicol, but this one from Jonathan is perfect. It's right on the sidewall, and it's a winner. In conclusion to this tape on defending, let's have a look at 4 good rallies. Remember, watching the top players is one of the best ways to improve your game. We look forward to seeing you in the third tape in the series, Power Squash Attacking, the most exciting aspect of this game. Have fun, practice hard, and take lessons with your local pro.